It's a sure thing. Change, change. Expect a miracle change. Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. Now do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 do.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're coming to us from today. I am so excited to be here with you. My name is Cheryl Rogers and I co-host the Spirit Cafe show, with Barbara Schreiner-Trudell, who sends her love and apologizes that she's not able to be here today. But I've been away for 3 weeks, so I'm really excited to be back with you. And we have an awesome show again today for you. So before we carry on, I would just like to acknowledge that I am honored to work, live, and play on the historical and traditional territory of many Indigenous nations across Canada. And I acknowledge the diversity across Turtle Island. By making this acknowledgement, we strive to be allies and an active part in reconciliation, the history, and the unique Indigenous heritage of our First People. And I am grateful. So today we have Cylvia Hayes, an amazing, wonderful woman who I'm not going to actually read a bio or give you a bio of, but let you know that I met her first at a Unity convention. She was doing a workshop called Sacred Economics. And the people that were there, I think it changed their lives that day. I know that it changed mine, and we've been in touch ever since. Now, Cylvia has a talk on TED Talks, and I watched it about, a month or two ago, and I was blown away. So, hi, Fiona. Great to see you here. So I invited her to be on our show and to share her story because she is just, in my eyes, an amazing human being. I just marvel at her. I bow down to her with the things that she has gone through, the things that she has done. And I will ask her to introduce herself to you and just tell you a little bit about herself, but also about her book, When Life Blows Up, A Guide to Peace, Power, and Reinvention, which is really came out of this experience that she shares on her TED Talk. So welcome, Cylvia.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. I'm just here for that introduction. I'm just going to play that back when I'm feeling low about myself.
It's so true, though. I mean, it's just, you have done so much. You have experienced so much. And I really believe that you are bringing so much to the world today, that you are here for a reason. We were chatting earlier, and I said to you, I really believe that life has led you on this journey. No, you have not led your life. It has led you, which I think is often the case. But it just, for me, is so clear in what you've gone through and what brings you to who you are today.
Well, I really appreciate that. As I mentioned, I think that when I think about trying to give a little overview of me or what have you, I think unconventional is the word that comes to me most, because I have been on an unconventional pathway through this human part of the journey. I went from really being a rough little farm kid up in the foothills of Washington State, first in my ancestry, born not in Oklahoma. And that's because my mom left her first husband for his younger brother. So they had to get the heck out of Dodge. I went from that to winding up on my own at about 16, and just some challenges there for sure. Eventually, was running heavy equipment for King County up in Washington State, and decided, I don't want to do this the rest of my life, and started attending community college. Went on to become a first generation college grad. Early on in my college experience, I was already in the process of kind of a rejection of the Christianity that I had been raised with, and an awakening to a more authentic for me spirituality, and also an awakening to what was really happening with our planet and the loss of species. And that lit a fire in me that has driven my work ever since. And it's actually what eventually got me into a political pathway. And as I share in the book and the TEDx talk, it's how I wound up meeting the former governor and eventually becoming the First Lady of Oregon. That sort of what some would see as a rise, and then the precipitous fall on the other side of that led to me getting into ministerial school, and I'll be ordained in just a couple months, finally. So there's a nutshell version.
Well, kudos to you, first of all, for being on the ministerial path and doing what you're doing, because I know that it is grueling. I can't think of any other word right now that
really
it can be. Yeah.
It is surprisingly grueling. Yeah.
But just hearing that snapshot, of your life, to me, speaks to the volume of things you've experienced, that you bring from your experience to us. As you said, basically the rise and then the fall. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. Let's hear from you. And I know it can be difficult to, bring it up again and talk about it again, even though you've done it so many times. You've written it in a book. You've shared it. I think from me, my point of view, when I was watching your TED Talk, I thought to myself, the fact that you are who you are today and how you present is something I marvel at, because I think that what you went through could have destroyed many people, and you chose not to let it. You chose a different path. And so that speaks to your essence, the essence of who you are.
I appreciate that. As I was sharing, for the rest of the audience, as I was sharing with Cheryl as we were waiting for the show to go live, I haven't actually spoken about this in quite a while. I mean, so let's see, it was 2014 when all of this took place. And it was front and center for me for a while, and the book and all of that. And then I was speaking about it quite a bit. But the last few years, it hasn't been at the forefront. And even as I'm hearing you talk about it, I can feel it in my stomach. Mm-hmm. I can feel it. So what happened was in October of 2014, I was serving as First Lady of Oregon, partner to the longstanding governor of Oregon, who was running for re-election, and a reporter who had been trying to get at me for years. He had tried to create a scandal around me when we ran in 2010, and that hadn't gone anywhere. But this time, he had dug up that I had been involved in a green card marriage. This was many years prior, a green card marriage, and also that I had been peripherally involved in a planned, but then I backed out of it, at the time, illegal marijuana growing operation. it was an 18-month period of my life that felt and feels very anomalous to me. I went down a path that really was not who I was. And it was a path based in scarcity, to be honest. The green card marriage was money to get myself through college, and also to keep the fellow who had already been here as a student for 6 or 7 years. He was able to stay here and continue studying, had a full ride scholarship riding upon that. So that got dug up, and that was used by our political opponents and conservative media to create a campaign of false allegations that the governor and I had misused our public positions for personal gain. And overnight, the enormity of it was incredible. Overnight, I was on every headline. CNN, MSNBC made it into the tabloids in Europe. It was just unbelievable. It was life blowing up. And it also blew up the life of the people I love most in the world. It just created such a mess. And the mistake, I feel, was getting into such a high profile position without being completely transparent about my past. And that wasn't an intentional thing. I had really compartmentalized that 18-month period. When that reporter was coming after me in 2010, there wasn't one time when I thought, oh my God, they're going to find the green card marriage. I mean, I just didn't think about it. And that blind spot created incredible havoc. And that started what led to John won re-election anyway, but resigned a couple months later due to the ongoing public pressure, media pressure. I knew then that was going to be, I felt that was a mistake. And I knew then that was going to really be a very damaging thing for him. It was incredibly hard to watch. And we went through a couple, 2.5 years of being investigated by the FBI, the IRS, Department of Justice, everything else, until they came back and said, there's no there. There's nothing to file charges for, which I knew was going to be the case because I knew what the truth was. But the damage was unbelievable. And the stress was unbelievable. And I would say it really took me 4.5, 5 years to really kind of be where it wasn't front and center, where I was comfortable moving out into public again and all of that. That's the nutshell.
Wow. I mean, for me, that sounds so traumatic. And it also brings up some other things for me in that, the damage that media can cause.
Yes.
And does cause
Yes.
a lot of the time. It also brings up the ripple effect that these, things have on people's lives. And I just don't understand the inconsideration. I can't think of another word right now, but the inconsideration or unconsideration, if that's even a word, of people who tell stories and blow up people's lives where there is actually no truth, or where they only have a small piece of the puzzle that doesn't actually show the whole picture.
It is one of the for-profit corporate media component is one of the systems that's fundamentally destructive to our society right now. I was pretty naive in a number of ways. That was hard to face too, because I thought I was kind of a savvy little street smart person, but I was pretty naive running in the arenas I was running in. And I was shocked to find out how blatantly dishonest media can be. And if you're a public figure, which is a very loosely defined term, you have no recourse, none. And I mean, the Oregonian, the largest newspaper outlet in the state, they eventually had to one of the colleagues of mine that they had involved in one of the many smears and allegations, he had proof that they had intentionally altered emails between him and I to make it read a certain way, and he was eventually able to get them for defamation, but I couldn't because I was a public figure. So it was that there were many aspects of this that were disillusioning. That was one area that was disillusioning. I have so much less faith in media, although a reaction to that is I'm now more intentional in where I get my news. And I'm also, whoever they're smearing, before I make a jump to either side of, a decision or a judgment, I just take a step back and feel like, this just may be clickbait.
Yeah, give them the benefit of the doubt.
Because that's what I was. I was clickbait. I made them a lot of money.
Yeah. That's something that I think the majority of us don't really realize or recognize, is how much is really truthful in the media and how much is a spin-off to get more readership, to do damage to political parties, to political, public figures, et cetera. And that actually brings up a thought that I had during the elections, any election really, is how the media sways people to vote. And so we think that we have control, that we live in a democracy, and that we have choices, not control. The word is choice. I really don't believe that anymore. I believe that we are so conditioned and so swayed by the media that we don't even realize that we are making decisions and choices that are not our own.
I call it programming. I think we're programmed. And, the bulk of my work prior and still, prior to life blowing up and ministerial path and all of that, it really has been about system change. And there's some Plato quote that says, if for those who are able to see the flaws in their own culture, they often aren't believed. And I have felt like that often because that's what I talk about with our economic system. But another one of these systems or interacting systems in our culture, what I like to do is bring up people so that they can question some of the assumptions that are governing our society right now. And one of those interconnected areas is the relationship between a two-party system and for-profit corporate media, and basically unlimited money in electoral campaigns. I believe if America ever wants to get to the point where it can govern itself again, we're going to have to evolve past a two-party system. We're going to have to deal with serious campaign reform and financing reform, and we're going to have to do something about the lack of accountability in media and I'm still a news junkie, and I'm a Politico. And on election nights, I will intentionally go back and forth between MSNBC and Fox News. And it's like going back and forth between parallel universes.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's this false illusion that we actually live in a democracy.
Yeah. We actually live in a corporatocracy.
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah, I think that's a great word. And this is, I think this is why I'm so drawn to you, is because not only do you see these things and can you speak to them, but when you have that experience, it's at a soul level that you're able to share these discussion points. This is not just a thought or a belief. This is something that you have experienced, you have seen, and because of that experience.
Yeah, I think so. I tend to say I don't know if everything happens for a purpose, but I believe we can make purpose of everything that happens.
Yes.
And this crazy unconventional, as I mentioned, pathway that I've been on, it does provide, as you say, some insight and some direct experiences around systems that need changing that I would not have had it not been so unconventional. And honestly, had it not been so neck deep in your word,
shit.
Right. We were having this conversation prior to the show, and I told a joke about that, and she said, "Yeah, you can use that word on our on our show."
Absolutely, yeah. Because the reality is that I really do believe that shit becomes fertilizer.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yes.
And I don't know that anybody can speak to something unless they've really experienced it. We can have an idea of something. We can believe something, which is a thought that we just tell ourselves over and over again. That's all it is, right? Yeah. But I don't know that we can truly embody an understanding or knowledge unless we have the experience.
I think that's true, at least for the really, really intense things. Like, I've never had a baby. I know that I can kind of imagine it, but though that's something that you would have to go through to really get it.
Absolutely.
A public shaming is at that level. You kind of have to go through it to get it, which is why I will say, I believe that now, having gone through this, I can understand much better how so many young people who wind up being shamed take their lives.
Yeah.
It is a prime. We were not genetically wired to be exiled from the tribe. And that usually was a death sentence for us as a species coming up on the savannah with saber-toothed tigers and things, right? I mean, it's primal. And it's a because we now have the ability for it to go viral and to be so big. It's dangerous. It is very dangerous.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Even just everything. Even our mental health systems, our medical systems, our political systems, everything causes some kind of I don't know. What I believe is that we do certain things and it causes harm. And then instead of going back to look at what we did and why the harm is being caused and address that, we put a plaster on that and we change it to something else.
We put a what on
it? A plaster.
Plaster. Okay, plaster.
A plaster. What do you call? I can't think of the word here. A Band-Aid.
Yeah.
A Band-Aid. There you go.
It's my finger in my wood stove.
We put a Band-Aid on it. Yeah.
It's going to be a prop today.
Right. Yeah. And then we just do something else. And so we build muck on muck on muck instead of going back to the cause of these issues. And so exactly what you're talking about is systemic issues that have not been addressed, that have caused the system that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. If you remember that workshop where you met me on sacred economics, one of my main points there is the importance of asking the right questions. I've heard it said, if you ask the wrong questions, the answers don't matter. Yeah. And I'll give you a great example. I'm getting ready to write a piece on this for my Transcend publication. This toxic train derailment that we are dealing with here in the United States and all of that. They're going after the railway. Sure, maybe that, great, super. They're trying to see what can we do for the local community. How do we clean it up? Great, super. Shouldn't we be asking, what exactly are we shipping and why? Why are we creating so much stuff that is so toxic in the first place? We are the only species on the planet that creates crap that the planet can't process.
Yeah.
To your point, we need to get to causal issues. Yeah. And I have to say, because I suspect that the bulk of this audience for Spirit Cafe is what I would I would assume most of them are more of a new thought audience. We're people who are on a spiritual pathway of intentionally questioning thinking and being more ready to unlearn programming and to question assumptions. And that is why I love having these kinds of conversations with this audience. It's why I'm on the Unity ministerial path, because I think new thought, that's a lovely sentence. I think new thought has a tremendous role to play in moving us through this human predicament that we've created.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think it's a very appropriate time to share your joke.
Okay. All right, cool. I am actually a spiritual leader at Unity Spiritual Community Central Oregon, and I regularly am one of the Sunday speakers, and I love going to a spiritual community where I can tell a joke like this. So these three guys, they pass over, and they've died, and they wind up in purgatory, and they're very confused and freaked out. And their version of purgatory is they are all up to their chins in shit. And they can't believe it. And they're wading around and trying to figure out what's going to happen. And they come across this guy who seems pretty relaxed, pretty resigned. He's clearly been there for a while. And they're just beginning to kind of ask him what's going on. And in the distance, they hear, woo! And they see this big spray of shit go flying across the horizon. And then they notice it's a boat coming. And there's a guy back there, and he's just laying it over water skiing. Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo! And he goes flying past him, sprays it up on him. The guy that's been there a long time, he looks over and says, "That's the dude from Unity."
I just love it.
And because of what you said earlier, when I tell that again, I will add in, because shit becomes fertilizer.
Yeah.
Right?
And exactly. And the guy from Unity has risen above the shit.
That's exactly right.
Right?
That's exactly right. Exactly. Yeah. That's what I love about that joke.
Absolutely. And I mean, Unity is one of, a few new thought movements. There's Center for Spiritual Living. There are a few others. And honestly, the basics are that we all believe the same thing. We are one, and we co-create our reality.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The moving beyond a dualistic approach to spirituality has been the biggest growth pathway of my life because of what I was raised with, and it's what really, really drew me to Unity and to New Thought.
Yeah,
so,
me too. Well, it's time for a commercial break. This is going so quickly because I could chat with you for hours. But we will be going away just for a couple of minutes and see you back soon.
Okay.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org. New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
We're back. So I just want to mention New Thought Media Network again. It is a nonprofit organization supported by love offerings and donations. And we are so grateful that we can have this platform, not only to present, but to listen to great speakers, to, great shows. They have other shows every day during the week. They're prayer opportunities, meditations, just different topics of interest. So I'd encourage anybody who's interested in New Thought to take a look at what they offer at their website and perhaps make a small donation to support this ongoing work. So thank you again, Cylvia. Oh my goodness. There's so many directions that we could go in because there's so much material that not only comes out of our conversations, but from your book and from all these things that you do in your life. So I just want to say I would love to have you on more shows and talk about some of those topics, chapters even in your book as a show on their own, because I think there's so much richness there. So let's go back to that experience, and what were the things that helped you to move forward and get out of that sludge?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that I have shared this in the book. I had a long-standing, very regular meditation practice in place before this happened. And I do think it is one of the things that may have saved my life, because my mind was a wild, savage, freaked out beast during all of this. I mean, it is really difficult to describe, but I am not exaggerating when I say this. You know how sometimes you'll have a nightmare and you'll wake up and you'll be like, oh, thank God, it was just a dream. This was a period of time where I would finally be able to fall asleep. And I'm normally a world-class sleeper, but the stress was so intense, I would finally fall asleep. And when I would wake up in the morning, there'd be a moment where I went, oh God, oh no, this is actually happening. It was like waking into a nightmare. Literally, that's what it felt like. So I always tell people, if you don't have a meditation and mindfulness practice on board, start yesterday, because that was critical. I think another thing that was very critical for me, I owned that I had made a horrific and costly mistake. I had never even told John about the green card marriage. So I had to tell him on the phone that day. Again, it wasn't something that I had intentionally hidden. It just, that was terrible, because I'm really an open book. So I was able to face that, but I also knew my true north. I knew what I was about. I knew I hadn't gone, into the freaking unpaid first lady role to try to get rich. I knew that, and I knew that my intentions were sound. So journaling was tremendously cathartic for me, because that helped me to, remind myself and remember my true north. And then I also really, I also very early on, I knew I needed professional therapy again, because I write about this in the book. There was a moment when I had to flee. So the whole time that I was in the first lady role, my partner and I, we've been together 20 years. We've never lived together full time. His primary home is about 3 hours from my primary home in Bend, Oregon, which is where I am now. And then we would also triangulate between the governor's residence at the Capitol in Salem. And I had been mostly based in Salem during this time. And everyone was panicked. Everyone in the administration, all the attorneys were panicked. And someone suggested that the feds might actually raid my house here, my 960 square foot house here, to get my records. And it was like, you gotta be kidding. So I fly, my car was here, my cats were here. I fly back to Bend, freaked out. And I've got a security detail behind me. I'm coming over here. Or actually, no, they brought me because my car was here. So I'm with the security guy. Get over here, panicked, just panicked, collect up my stuff. Reporters and paparazzi all around my house. I had to have my beloved neighbors help me get in and out without being ambushed. Collect up my stuff. And then I am driving. I'm driving my own little Prius car back over the mountain pass. And there was a moment, it was raining really hard. And there was the first moment where the anger, or the wound and the hurt broke through the anger. And what surprised me is when that happened, what triggered was not really all the stuff that was happening in the present. What triggered was some of the really dark things that had happened with my dad and with my family. And so, to not talk too long, I think one of the things that there was a point early on where I could have written a book titled Self-Healing Through Public Shaming, because I went back into therapy and I wound up just in divine guidance with a therapist who was very skilled in EMDR, eye movement sensitization and reprogramming. And that was transformative for me. So that's what I kind of advise. It's like mindfulness practice, whatever calms you down. My dog, getting into nature. I was afraid to go into public, but I am lucky enough to live in a place where I can get out into nature. And therapy on the front end, those were critical.
Right. And journaling.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Getting it all out. Right.
Extremely cathartic for me, always has been. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm a writer, so that's a natural one for me. But and I'm super glad I journaled through this whole experience, because when I got ready to write the book, the stress had been so intense that parts of this I never would have really been able to remember. I certainly would have lost the details of some of it. So I'm glad, I'm definitely grateful for that piece as well.
That's a very good point, actually. How we suppress things. And so whether you journal or write a book or whatever form it is that you're able to keep that information present, I think is actually important, not just for yourself, but for so many others, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's really important for my story in this is pretty early on, I really did open up to what is mine to do here, because it was such a huge mess. And I had misjudged my own self so much. Like I was so much more naive. I didn't realize there was so much jealousy in the Capitol and in that whole scene. I was just and pretty early and I was just so broken that I couldn't think about work. I couldn't think about anything. And the statement, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And I started reading, Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now and Pema Chodron and all these things. And eventually eventually started working with A Course in Miracles. And to say that that has changed my life is just such a gross understatement. And I began to realize, and I share this openly in the talk and in my book, I was so much more under the influence of ego than I realized.
Mhm.
And ego from the sense of not just arrogance or whatever, because I don't think I came across like that, but ego
Mhm.
from the sense of my little self being more in control, and that need for outside validation to
Mhm.
feel self-worth. I was shocked when I realized the depth to which that had driven me really my entire life up to that point. And I had been pretty good at getting it. I'd been successful in things. I was relatively pretty. I was able to work that ego angle. I was able to be popular until I wasn't,
Mhm.
until I was exactly the opposite.
Mhm.
And talk about turning one's world and self-identity on their head. But I used to call this whole thing, it's been so long since I've talked about it. I used to call this whole thing the big ordeal, and I now call it the big initiation, because it broke me down and then
Mhm.
broke me open. And I'm so much happier and more joyful. And the other fascinating thing, I know I'm rambling, I'll stop it, but the other
Mhm.
fascinating thing about this is, as it was happening, the sense of loss was just devastating. I mean, literally, when the attorneys finally got through to me that it was going to be years, not months, but years before I was really going to be able to work in my field
Yeah.
again, it buckled me.
Yeah.
But as I moved through it and was doing all of this growth, I realized a whole bunch of what had been devastating to lose, I didn't actually want. A
Yeah.
whole lot of it. That's a life lesson worth gold right there.
Absolutely. I love that. The big initiation.
The
Oh
big
my
initiation.
goodness. And that's what I mean about turning things around, right? It's as a human being, we can go either way, because that's just part of who we are. We have that choice to go either way. We can become something that we really don't want to be, or we can choose to see it differently, to grow, to read, to get the help that we need, all that kind of thing. So again, I can listen to you for hours because, and I'm sure many others can, because of your experience. One of the things, you were talking about your ego, and it makes me think that we are all programmed that way. I believe that the reason that the state of the world is the way it is because of ego.
I agree 100%. And ego for me, A Course in Miracles, I think, describes it. Its concept of ego is much deeper than what we might think of through traditional, therapy or pop culture. It's that ego is this construct that we create around ourselves. It's an identity that we create, and
That's
it's
right.
always based in separation.
Mhm.
And then you put that on top of the fact that we also have in the Western culture, for sure, but now it's fairly, it's global, this global crazy capitalist system that we have. And by the way, I'm not completely anti-capitalist. I'm just anti the manifestation of capitalism that we currently have.
Yeah,
We need an economic system that's actually suited for these times. That's a
I
different topic.
agree. Yeah.
But we're in a culture that just pounds in competition, comparison, chasing after things like material wealth and success. Most of the we're in a culture where we it's so easy to find ourselves comparing ourselves to pictures and stories that we know are airbrushed. We know they're not accurate. And yet it's so hard not to do that, because that sense of lack and that sense of less than is what feeds the consumption machine. It's what feeds the marketing machine. So, and those two things I think are very causal. Being, being unaware, having so many people who are being, unconsciously driven by ego, and has created a culture that drives that stuff. And now we have a culture that makes it hard to get ego out of the driver's seat. So I agree with you. You look at what's going on globally, you look at the problematic world leaders on our planet right now, and I don't think you can.
Ego is like out.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like ego, to the point where they're insane.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think again, it's that structure that we've created as a society. What we will define as failure, what we define as success, what we give value to. These are all the things that have created the world today. And what I love about you, Cylvia, and I'm going to say this again, I apologize for saying how much I love you all the time, but what I do love about you, first of all, is how honest you are, and the fact that you get and you're able to portray just how big of a shift we need to make to make significant change. Because I don't think people realize that. We talk about change, but we talk about change like this. But I really believe that there has to be monumental change in order for there to be a shift in consciousness and to be a better world.
I could not agree with you more. And, I'll give you a great example. President Biden, the Biden administration, so far, they've taken the biggest steps so far of any administration to begin to try to address climate change, et cetera, et cetera. On the same day that the administration is touting all this stuff that they've done on climate, they're also sharing all the stuff they're going to do to get the economy growing more, to prop up the industrial meat packing industry. You can't have those things together. You cannot have. We need to fundamentally redesign civilization. And it is a big task. But what I really want to share with people, one of the things that keeps me motivated and going, there is such a huge movement toward that redesign. There's the whole new economy movement, the whole well-being economy movement. I sometimes share this video clip that's showing names of, or it's just a black scroll like at the opening of Star Wars with names of organizations listed. And these are organizations that are working on this societal redesign. You could watch that 24/7 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for several months, and you wouldn't be at the end of that list. It's the largest social evolution movement in the history of history. That's happening now. I'm delighted to report, I mentioned to you earlier, Parliament of World Religions. This year, it happens in Chicago in August. This year, for the first time, New Thought, Michael Beckworth is going to present New Thought on the main stage. It's the first time that New Thought has been elevated. And I get to present on a less main stage on spiritual economics, this whole talk about system change. We're at a point where that has got to be the case. We are past the point of incremental change.
Fantastic. Yeah, and anybody who is attending the Parliament for World Religions, I encourage them to go to your talk, Sacred Economics, because oh my goodness, honestly, it should be part of the curriculum in schools, I think.
Well, I'm working on that. I'm actually, there's some tracks in there with a major university, so we'll see.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. And I will say as well, and thank you for bringing that up because we're nearing the end of the show, and I think it's a great way. Is when I did attend your presentation, and you showed that list at the end, it gives so much hope,
Yeah.
and so much. It's so affirmative that things are changing and that we are moving in the right direction and that momentum is speeding up.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to BS anybody. I mean, this is going to be a bumpy ride, in my
Mhm.
opinion. I believe that we are in an apocalyptic age, but apocalypse is not a terrifying term to me. The root word of apocalypse means unveiling what was hidden. We're in a point where we really can't hide from a lot of the ills of our society anymore, right? We can't hide from what we're doing to this planet anymore. And that's a good thing, because that we're starting to have to address it. We are going to make the big system changes by choice or by force. And my point is, there are a whole lot of folks and organizations and even governments who are actually realizing we have to make the depth of these changes. And that's where new thought is so important, because we can also lend the ability to sit in that paradox of seeing the crap and also holding the faith that in the field of possibility, anything is possible.
Yeah, holding that vision,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And because that's so important, holding the vision and feeling the change in that way, and bringing up that fear does the opposite.
Yeah.
Right? Fear does the opposite. So not feeding that fear, but having that vision of moving forward in a positive way and knowing that things are being done and things are happening. But I think, again, from what you've said, not to take it too lightly, even though this is happening, because we have to be engaged. We
Yeah.
each have a role to play. We each have a
I believe
part
so.
in it.
Yes. I believe we're all here for a reason. And I believe, people who are intentionally waking up spiritually, who are on that path, we need to take the meditation off the mat and into the messes. We do.
Yes.
We
Into
do.
schools, and I know some places that's happening, and it does need to happen more and more. It needs to become part of the fabric of who we are and
Yeah.
the fabric of how we live and operate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's my point. I know you can't change one person or everyone listening on this show. We can't change the entire global freaking capitalist economic system overnight. I understand that. And yet, questioning the assumptions, having these conversations, having uncomfortable conversations beyond with your family or your friends, just not just sitting back and accepting the status quo is critical to shifting the status quo.
I agree. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that we brought you, onto this show, and that I would like to have you hear more, is that the purpose of the Spirit Cafe show is to have courageous conversations
Right.
and inspire people to think courageously, to act courageously, but to do that in a way, just like you said, of gaining more knowledge about what's really going on. And maybe we never know what's really going on. They say three sides to a story, right? Your side, my side, and the truth, whatever that is. But I think educating ourselves and being more willing to be open to these different conversations, to be open to new thoughts and new ways of doing things, that are what some people might think crazy, but that are really life affirming and life changing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want to sit back, if you want a study of crazy, take a little bigger view of what we're doing right now,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The biggest threat going is continuing going the way we're going.
Right.
So,
Keeping doing what we've been doing and expecting something different.
exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So any other thoughts or just any other thoughts or suggestions that you would like to share with people who are listening to this talk, whether it be now or on YouTube later or wherever it goes and it's meant to be, it will, I certainly believe.
Yeah, I think we're talking at two different levels at the same time. Clearly, we're talking about tools to help when your own personal life blows to pieces in a big way. And I think in addition to what I've already shared, I guess one of the biggest muscles that I was able to better develop from all of that personal experience was the ability to navigate fear. And the biggest piece of that for me was really it is a concept shared in A Course in Miracles, but it's the holy instant. It's coming back into the present moment, bringing your mind off the future and off the past. And something that I found over and over again useful when the fear would just grab me was asking the question, in this current moment right now, am I basically okay? Am I basically okay? And if you're listening to this talk, or if you have the ability and the time to do that, the answer has to be yes. Mm-hmm. We're not jumping out of the way of a rattlesnake. We don't have someone chasing us down the street. We're okay right now. And the more we can come back to that when we're really struggling with fear, that's a very powerful practice. Mm-hmm. Then on the other angle, on the other piece of it, which is how do we create a world that works better for all beings? I just really encourage people to get better educated about the whole new economy movement. I've got information about this. I share information on my Transcend publication. Would love to have you all subscribe to that. And also information on The Rethink, which is about rethinking our norms. I hatched that nonprofit when COVID hit because I knew COVID was going to put us in an economic timeout, and pretty quickly there was going to be a clamor to let's get back to normal, back to normal. Well, normal was killing us. So, getting educated about that, questioning the assumptions, and realizing that there is a big growing movement that's doing that with you. That I think I highly recommend.
Beautiful. Yeah, like you said, two different levels. And really, it takes us as individuals, one person at a time, to create the shift in the larger picture.
It really does. The mission of my ministry, which it's so funny that I actually say that now, is to do whatever I can to help heal the insanity of humanity, beginning with my own, so that all of nature can heal. Yeah. Healing separation consciousness so that we can create a world where all beings can thrive. Absolutely. Those two things, that our human species, I don't believe our human species is the be all and end all and apart from and more important than all the other species, but we are the one making the biggest impact. So we're definitely going to need to evolve our collective consciousness in order to go into a better relationship with the rest of nature and with our planet, for sure.
Absolutely. What a perfect way to end today's show. Congratulations, Cynthia, on, look at your beautiful dog.
This is the big dog. This is Freya, aka Lotta Dog.
Oh my gosh. Is that a she or a he?
It's a she.
She's gorgeous. Just from seeing her little face,
My little
Beautiful.
border collie Olive is she's in her crate right now because she'd be in here being very busy. She's my little agility dog. Yes.
She'd want to be on the show. Well,
Yes.
again, congratulations on being ordained as a minister. I will be there to
Yay.
to literally and physically give you a hug and
Cool.
cheer you on. That will be in June at the Unity Convention. And congratulations as well on the Parliament of World Religions. You
Thanks.
are really a pioneer. You're leading the way. When you spoke about your list, I'm thinking, where else is there a list that is compiled of all those things that you've put together for us to be able to tap into and to learn and educate ourselves about what's being done and what we can do to be part of it. So thank you so much. And I so look forward to having you back on this show again.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.